The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure buried in a field, which a person finds and hides again, and out of joy goes and sells all that he has and buys that field. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant searching for fine pearls. When he finds a pearl of great price, he goes and sells all that he has and buys it. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a net thrown into the sea, which collects fish of every kind. When it's full, they haul it ashore and sit down to put what is good into buckets. What is bad, they throw away. Thus it will be at the end of the age. The angels will go out and separate the wicked from the righteous and throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Do you understand all these things?" They answered, "Yes." And he replied, "Then every scribe who has been instructed in the kingdom of heaven is like the head of a household, who brings from his storeroom both the new and the old." The Gospel of the Lord.
I didn't plan to say this, but I got up early this morning and made my espresso, my coffee, and I was reading some poetry and praying, and I came across a poem that talks about what our gospel talks about. It's from St. John of the Cross, and of course he's a man, but now when he talks about his soul, the word soul in so many languages is a feminine word, and so they always talked about their soul as she. So it'll start, "She said to me," that kind of thing, but he's talking about his soul. He's really talking about your soul and my soul and your life and my life. But the first line just caught me. It caught me and I just laughed. And then as I was reading the poem, he said it made him laugh too. So I was glad. Listen to the first line. "She caught me off guard when my soul said to me, 'Have we met?'" Have we met? My soul. Yeah, that's his whole point. Have you even met your soul? Teresa of Avila says that our soul is like the most beautiful, beautiful jewel, and it's the most precious thing within us and in our whole lives, and we don't even know it's there. We spend no time at all with it. And so she caught me off guard when my soul said to me, "Have we met?" So surprised was I to hear her speak like that, I chuckled. She began to sing a tale. There was once a hard-working man who used to worry so much. Anyone like that? Yeah. Because he could not feed and clothe his children and wife the way he wanted. There was a beautiful little chapel in the village where the man lived, and one day while he was praying, an angel appeared. The angel said, "Follow me." And he did, out into an ancient forest. "Now dig here," the angel said. And the man felt strength in his limbs he had not known since youth. And with just his bare hands, he dug deep and found a lost treasure. And his relationship with the world changed. Finding our soul's beauty does that. Gives us tremendous freedom from worry. "Dig here," the angel said, "in your soul, in your soul." Yeah. And so today's gospel is about a man who was digging in a field and he found a treasure. And he was surprised. And so one of the commentaries said, this is probably the Gentiles, because the next one is a man who intentionally is looking for the pearl of great price, looking for great pearls. And so he said, that's the Jews probably, because the Jews were looking for the Messiah. They were looking for the kingdom of heaven to come. And so when they found it, they're like, yes, And wow, they were so excited, and it was so powerful and so amazing that they never were the same. Remember, he says, dig here, and when I did, I found the treasure, and my relationship with the world was changed. When the man found the pearl of great price, the relationship with with the world has changed. He would sell the whole world to buy that pearl. And so us Gentiles, we're all Gentiles, unless there's a Jew among us. Sometimes we do have a woman here who married a Jewish man. Unless you're a Jew, we're all Gentiles. We're the ones who accidentally found the kingdom. We weren't looking for the kingdom historically, and yet the kingdom came to us too. And when we found it, wow, our relationship with the world changes. Everything changes when we find it, when we experience it. The problem is in seeing. The issue is seeing. It's a buried treasure, so we can't see it. For all the saints, they can see Jesus in every single person. And it's like, wow. They look at someone and smile, and they were like, why are you looking at me like that? And it's because I see my beloved. I see my God in you. I see Jesus in you. And not only that, they can see it in all of creation. And so its relationship with the world and with every person is changed. And so we as Gentiles weren't looking for it, but we found it. It found us. Yeah. And so everything changed since then. And so what is this treasure? I want to talk to you about, it's all about seeing, and we have to be taught to see, because it says, though the eye of sinful man thy glory may not see, and I want to see his glory. I want people to quit talking about it. I want to see it. I want to experience. I want to go there. And I know when I go there, I want to live there. Yeah, talking about it, I'm done. I've heard enough. And so here I am. I'm going to talk to you about it. But I want you to see it. I want you to experience it. I want you to know it like anything, better than anything else. And I want you to chuckle when your soul says to you, have we met? Have we met? Yeah. And so, one day I was studying in theology of the Trinity. I'll tell you a little experience where I saw God. And I'm just studying. I'm not doing anything to bring this on. And all of a sudden, I started studying at 4 a.m. I forgot what time this happened. I saw God. I was in God's presence. I was just studying. All of a sudden, God was with me. I was with God. And it was so amazing. I was so blown away. I always say the wrong thing. I always say something dumb. I'm like, God, what should I do? I mean, should I be a good steward and keep studying? I have my finals in a couple hours. Or should I just spend my time with you? Guess what I did? Threw the books away. Yeah. And I just spent the time with God. It was theology of the Trinity afterwards. And I was, after all, and I was in the presence of the Trinity. And so I spent time with God. And I tell you what, that's changed everything for me. And whatever I worried about before, yeah, forget it. Because that's all I want. And I got that already. And I don't want to go back. And no one will ever go back when they have that. And so it was an amazing. I seemed to know all the answers to all the questions I had of what would it be like to be a holy priest. I used to wonder about that stuff. How many black shirts should a holy priest own? One, right? Because he's holy, he just has one and washes it every day. But you have 5? What? You know? What should you do with your books when you had the class? Should you keep them and use them as tools like a carpenter? Should you sell them and give the money to the poor? How often should you fast? Should you fast every day? Should you fast on Fridays? Should you fast just in Lent? What? Do you guys even fast? You know? And so I'm asking these questions all the time with friends, and we're talking about what it's going to be like. And all those answers came to me when I met God, you know? And God just instantly, I knew everything. I was reading a homily by the Pope this morning, and he said, conversion doesn't take a long time. It happens instantly. And yeah, instantly I was there. Instantly I knew. So when you see, instantly it happens. When you experience it, instantly it happens. And so I knew all of a sudden it didn't matter how many black shirts you had. It was all about God. It was all being in God. He'd tell you if you had too few or too many. Didn't matter how much you prayed. It's all about God. That's the one thing I desire is beauty, that beauty of God. And so if you need to fast, God will tell me. If I needed to not fast, God will tell me. Just eat, fast, whatever it is. So anyways, it was amazing, and I'll never be the same. I can draw from that experience still. Thomas Aquinas, the greatest of all the theologians, was just working on his work like I was, and all of a sudden, he was in God's presence. He had that experience of God too, and he threw all his books in the fire because the God he was writing about, the God you read about when you read all this theology, yeah, Thomas Aquinas threw it in the fire because the God he met was way different, way more amazing, way more amazing. And so if you're into theology, if that's your thing, great start. Keep going until you see. Keep going until you experience. Keep going until you know that God, because that's a treasure that if you find it or it finds you, yeah, you'll never be the same. You'll trade everything in. You'll trade everything in, and you'll completely buy in. You'll say, I'm in, and that's who I am, and that's what I do. I don't care about any of the rest of this. And you know what? When you give up everything else to find that and get that, everything else kind of comes back to you more beautiful. You know, all of creation, it's still there. It's just so much more amazing because you see your treasure in it. Everybody else, that you give them all up, they're still there, and you love them all the more, and you see God in them and the treasure in them. Yeah, and so Jesus, this is really, really cool. I did it at a funeral yesterday, and Jesus in the prayer says that the people of God whom you purchased with your blood. Yeah, when God is looking for the treasure, guess what? Where he found it? You. You were the treasure God was looking for. And so the Bible says that Jesus, being in the form of God, emptied himself, gave it all up, gave up all that glory. He got rid of everything that they called glory about him too, and he emptied himself, he sold it, and he came down here and he became one of us because he wanted you to be his treasure. And so he became a human being, he became a servant, and he came to serve and be obedient even to the point of death so that he could buy you because you're God's treasure. Did you know you're God's treasure? When I look in the mirror, I just see some old guy. I used to be young. I'm used to seeing someone else, and some old guy looks at me. But it's not an old guy. It's God's treasure. It's that thing God loves the most. And so St. Lawrence, back in the day, I forget when he lived, 200s, 300s, whatever, he was a deacon like this one, all right? Probably not as good as ours. He was being persecuted. He was probably going to die, all right? They're going to kill him. And they said to him, we heard the Church of Rome is rich. Well, it is now, but back then they probably didn't have two nickels to rub together. And they heard, there was a rumor that the Church of Rome was rich. And so they told St. Lawrence, you are required to bring all the treasure of the church and give it to us. And St. Lawrence said, okay, I'll do that, but it takes me time to gather it all up because there's a lot. And I'll meet you here tomorrow, right here in the same place. And so when they met the next day to get all the treasure of the Roman church, you know what St. Lawrence had brought, don't you? All the poor people of Rome. That was the treasure of the church. That is God's treasure. We can never look on them the same now. They're not the poor, they're the treasure. And so I'm sure they killed St. Lawrence and all that sort of thing. But he had it right, didn't he? Because God's our treasure. And for God, you're our treasure. And so we believe in what? Loving God with all our heart and loving our neighbor with all our heart. Yeah, because there's a treasure there and there's a treasure there. A woman was in counseling once, and she said to her counselor, I need you to help me make a decision. Should I go to med school or should I stay home with my family and raise my kids? And the counselor said, well, it seems to me with a little outside help you could do both. And she said, well, let me tell you a story. When I was about 11 or 12, my parents always took vacations, and they always took really nice ones, like in Europe, and I always was left home with the housekeeper. And one year, when I was 11 or 12, just before they had to leave, the housekeeper quit, and they were panicked. They didn't know what to do. Finally, they found a new housekeeper just at the last moment. And so the night before they were going to leave, the mother of the little girl was wrapping up all the silver and all her jewelry and everything else. And the little girl saw her doing it and said, "What are you doing?" And the mother said, "I can't trust the new housekeeper with my valuables." And the little girl was devastated. She's like, "But you can trust her with me? You value that and will hide it, but you're going to put me in her hands?" What's that all about? Yeah. When we experience the truth, not when we hear about it, not when we talk about it, when we experience it, our whole relationship with the world changes. It's not about silver. It's not about those things. The little girl's the valuable. The little girl's the treasure. You're the treasure. God's the treasure. So much more to say. We want to baptize these two little treasures, though. And so, wow. Do you believe it? Do you believe it? Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Give me eyes to see. Give me ears to hear. Lord, help me not just to come here and do my obligation. Help me to experience you in everything, in the readings, in the prayers. Help me to know you, Lord. Help me to know you in such a way that I want nothing else ever again, just your beauty, your glory in my life. That's our treasure. That's our faith. What an amazing treasure. What an amazing, wonderful faith we have.